this is Shebs from Shebs the Wanderer, helping you to wander, discover, explore. It's another edition of Take a Wander with Shebs, where I get the chance to talk to someone else about their travels. Today I've got Micheal Huxley. Now, Micheal is a full-time blogger, has his own company called Bemused Backpacker. I shall be discussing with him about his journey within the travel industry and what it takes to become a full-time blogger. You'll see during our talk, our main topic of discussion was on how to successfully have your own blog. In particular, we spoke about charging for your service instead of doing it for free. So let's take a look into what Mike had to say. Hi Mike, how you doing? You all right?
Really good, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's really good to be here.
Whereabouts are you from?
Liverpool. I think my accent's weird because I've travelled for so long. I tend to flatten my accent when I'm talking to different people. I tend to do it when I travel a lot as well, but when I'm home, don't worry, the Scouse accent comes out really strong. This is the longest I've not travelled in about 20 years now. There've been periods of time where I've stayed at home to work, and the periods of time where I've lived abroad for a little bit. But yeah, I think this is the longest where I've just been stuck and not travelled.
I think because I'm constantly on the move, it allowed me to sort of just reflect and do things that I've not been able to do. So have you found that actually?
I've always been an author. I've had published books before, and it's finally allowed me the time to sit down and get the sequel to my novel out. So yeah, I have found that to an extent, but it's been difficult trying to get that sort of work-life balance between being at home, doing my work here, and then being able to travel as well. So it's there's, like anything in life, there's ups and downs, there's good and bad. So, but yeah, it's still takes some getting used to. I think here in the UK, we've obviously moved past the stage, and I think we can start to travel now if we wanted to certain places. And how did it start then for you? I know you said you started 20 years. Well, you started traveling 20 years ago. Where did it begin? Yeah. Well, like most people, really. I never really travelled as a kid. My family, we could never really afford to go on big holidays or anything. But we went on days out. We went on short UK trips, and that was what we could afford, and that was brilliant for what it was. But I never really travelled abroad as like growing up. So I think the first time I went was to visit a friend in Germany. I just basically booked a plane ticket and just flew out there on my own, spent some time with them and came back. But I think my first big trip was like most backpackers. It was to Southeast Asia. Flew to Thailand, went to Vietnam, Cambodia, the usual banana pancake trail. And that's what really sort of opened me up to thinking the world's an amazing place and I really want to see as much of it as I can. And since then, I haven't really stopped, and I've had times where, like, when I came back from that first trip, I went to university, did my first degree, but I was still traveling in like the summer holidays and holidays between that. And then obviously once I graduated, I traveled some more, came back, did my second degree in nursing, and I still traveled in holidays and that while I was studying. And then even during my career as a nurse, I was still taking long breaks. So I'd work for a few months and then I'd go traveling for a few months, or I'd quit a job, go travelling for a bit, and then come back and get another job because, well, I was a nurse. I could do. We were in demand, and bosses hated me, but they didn't really have a choice. I just reminded them they're the ones who needed me and my skills. It wasn't the other way around. So, I took charge of my own life, travelled as much as I could, and that's where I am now. And now this is what I'm for a business. So.
Perfectly come to your brand actually, Bemused Backpacker. Now, yeah. Tell me how it all started. I mean, where did you come up with the name Bemused Backpacker?
Well, the backpacker was a given because that for a long time was what I was. I backpacked around the world. It was a big part of my identity. So backpacker was always a given, and the bemused was just because that's the sense I always had when I was traveling the world. I was just a little bit confused, a little bit bemused about everything. So it was just, and there's always a nice little bit of alliteration there as well.
In what way were you bemused by the traveling?
Just because, especially when I first started out, I was very young, or relatively young compared to what I am now, and it's been one of the major contributors to who I am. So when I first started traveling, I was still learning who I was. I was learning my own identity. I was learning about the world, and travel has taught me a lot of that. It's given me a lot of that. So when I first started out, that's the sort of mindset that I had. I was learning about things. I wanted to learn as much as possible. I was confused by a lot of things, because obviously when you're a lot younger, you don't know everything. You still don't know everything when you're older. But when you're young, you're just trying to take as much as you can, soak as much culture up, soak as much knowledge up as you can, and it's just that process of learning about the world, learning about different cultures and things, and that's where it came from, really.
Is it like a proper company that you've got, or is it a blog?
It is my full-time business. It started out like most it did start out as a blog, but it did start out differently to most blogs because it was never. I'd been traveling about 12 or 13 years or something like that before I started writing about it. I'd been writing long before that, but before I started the blog, I'd been traveling for so long, so it was never a sort of diary of what I was doing and where I was going, and it was never really about me. I actually started it to sell my travel books, which I'd written and published. So I wanted to promote them, I wanted to sell them. So it started out with that purpose. And then obviously, as I learned more and more about blogging, the blogging world, and I got further and further into it, that's when it developed to a business. I slowly started earning more and more money. Eventually, I was earning as much from this business as I was from being a full-time nurse. And then eventually, obviously, this really overtook what I was ever earning as a qualified nurse.
Blogging, sort of, I only first started notice blogging maybe about 10, 15 years ago, when it was quite a new thing. But I'm assuming people have been writing about travel and all sorts for years and years and years and getting publications. Obviously, the world of internet has allowed people to write about their journeys, experiences, and stuff. My question is, how did you get noticed? There's literally millions of people that travel and millions of people who write blogs. What sort of made you stand out?
So much in that it's hard to pinpoint just one thing. I think part of it was timing. I've been doing this for about 9 years now. So I think starting a blog now is very, very different to starting a blog 9 years ago. No one, or very few people, knew what a blog was, and they thought it was just an online diary. I mean, that's what it used to be. That's what it started out as. It was literally just people putting in their own thoughts on a little blog on the internet. And I think as well, most blogs probably don't last more than a year. That people start it, they get big ideas. I could start a blog, throw some ads on it, and I'll earn all the money. And it never happens like that at all. So after a year, they get fed up and give up, and then stop. Or if there are people who are using it as an online diary, they go for a gap year, and they use it for that year. But then when they get back, it sort of falls by the wayside, and they do new things. So most people, they tend not to go past that year point. At most, probably 2 years. Once you get past that, the longer you are, the older you are as a blogger. You do more things, you work more with more brands, you do more projects, you do more campaigns, and the more you do, the more you get noticed. It's like most things. You start off small and work with smaller brands or smaller DMOs and smaller tourism boards, and then as you get noticed and noticed and noticed, and people start seeing what you do, that's when you grow, you get more work. I think that's a big part of it as well. But I think the time saved is probably one of the biggest things, I think, because I've got a huge body of work now on my website. I've got a big audience. I've got a loyal audience, and when brands or DMOs want look at that and see that,
Mm.
there's obviously a lot of value in that for them, and I can actually say to them, look, I can offer you a huge return on investment. I've got the evidence there. Just look at my media kit, look at the brands I've worked with, look at the DMOs I've worked with, look at the campaigns I've worked on. That basically the online CV, for lack of a better word. That sort of gets you noticed a lot as well. And the more you do, obviously, the more you get noticed.
It sounds like perseverance was key, and also the longer you're doing it, you just said that you get noticed by brands, and that's actually a question I've got. Actually, how did you start working with brands? Because I've noticed on your website, some big companies on there, like the likes of BBC and all sorts.
Well, I've got NASA on there. That was one of my proudest moments
Oh,
working
NASA,
with
yes, NASA as well.
spacecraft.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, how did that all come about? Is there a secret to it, or is it just hard work?
Boil it down into three things. It'd be perseverance, because, like I said, most people just want that quick, easy money. They want that quick fix, and it will never ever happen. You have to build up your audience, build up your brand, build up your business, and start small and then build bigger. So that's the first one. The second one is, treat it like a professional business. If you approach this game as a hobby, if you approach it as, something I can just get a few free things from, that's all it will ever be for you. And frankly, you're not worth anything to anyone. So why would any brand or any DMO work with you if that's your approach? Treat it like a professional business, act like a professional, be that brand that DMOs and other brands want to work with. And the third one is probably market yourself. Go to conferences, go to all these different networking events, and network. The more people the easier it will be to find work, and the easier it will be for people to know you. I mean, like I said, one of my favourite press trips I have ever done was with Huntsville in Alabama. Absolutely loved that campaign. Went to Space Camp, went to the Space and Rocket Center, loved it. That came about from a chance meeting at a networking event.
You might have a conversation about football or tennis or whatever, that might go, oh yeah, that was a really cool guy, and he does all sorts of stuff. Let's get him, because it's all based on personalities, isn't it? And
Yeah.
if you can show yourself as someone, people can interact with, work with, maybe in the future. I think that goes a long way, and I think it goes back to obviously what we do. We travel a lot. One of the best things that I always say to people: when you travel, you get to meet so many people, and it helps you develop into a better person, in my opinion. And when it
Yeah.
comes to everyday life after that, it sort of will help you with anything that you try and accomplish.
Definitely, I completely agree with that. And I always said to people, even if obviously we do this as a business, this is our work, so that's always a part of it. But even if you don't do that, traveling is always one of the best things you can ever do for yourself. It makes you into a more rounded person, makes you into a better person. It opens your mind to different paradigms. It opens up your mind to different ways of thinking, and you see things from a perspective that you never would have before. It just makes you a better, more interesting person. It makes you the best version of yourself that you can be. And that's one of the things I love about travel.
The video that I saw, you talked a lot about, and it was quite a long video, so it was like about a 40-minute interview that you did. You spoke about when you're starting off a blog and you might do things for free. And you were talking about a lot about not doing things for free. It's, if you got a talent, if you got a skill, why should you do it for free? Firstly, is there an issue when it comes to brands approaching you thinking, oh yeah, we can get this for free because, exposure for him? That's one question. And also, is the other thing when, let's say for example, I've had people ask me recently to do stuff, and I think, well, actually, it's good exposure for myself. Maybe someone else will notice me from doing what I've just done for them. Does that work?
My rule is never work for free. It never works. If you were in any other profession, doesn't matter what it was, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a builder, whether you work in marketing, doesn't matter what it is, you wouldn't work for free, would you? Even if you went to get a job in fast food place, 15, 16 years old, never worked before, no experience, you wouldn't go there and work for free for the first year just because you've got no experience. You'd expect to get paid from the off, and that pay might not be a lot. It might not be as good as what a lot of other people are getting who's got a lot of other experience and different things. But you'd expect to get paid. In any job, in any profession, you would expect to get paid for your work. So why is blogging any different? And I think that there's a huge problem at the moment with the vast majority of bloggers work for free. They do, or they work for freebies. And that's built up a sort of reputation of bloggers where brands and marketers and PRs see us as free marketing for them. And I've said so many times to so many brands, what other people do is their business. If they want to be stupid and work for free, I couldn't care less. I provide a lot of return on investment. You've come to me because of my skill, my brand, everything that I can offer you. So if you want me to work for you, you will damn well pay. And if you don't like for that, go and work with one of those freebie grabbers. You will not get anywhere near as much return on investment as you'll get with me. So if you want to work with a professional and get a professional result, you pay. If you don't, go and work with a freebie grabber. It's really that simple. I think as well, if you look at the difference between what we do in new media, like videographers, vloggers, bloggers, and what the traditional media do. All of these brands, all of these PR companies and marketers are quite happy to drop tens of thousands of pounds on traditional media. But they balk at paying a fraction of that for us, even though in general terms we have bigger audiences, more engaged audiences. We are the people where people come to research things, to look for information. So they don't go to traditional TV for adverts anymore. They don't read newspapers anymore. They come to YouTube. They look at blogs. And most people, even when they Google something, might not even realize they're looking at a blog because we've used SEO to our article on number one page on Google. So if they're willing to drop thousands of pounds on traditional media, why aren't they spending more on us? And the answer is because most bloggers work free. So they're basically giving away all of the product, and brands on, we're getting all this marketing for free, great. We're not going to pay anyone to do it because we've got 20 other people. I remember once I was at a conference, and I was talking to all these different brands. There was a very, very well-known luxury travel brand, and I was talking to him and everything else. He said, you charge for your work. And yeah, my rate sheet is right up there on my website. Professional services, professional rates. He said basically, and this is almost a direct quote, why would I pay any blogger when there's 50 lining up to do it for free? And he's right. From a business point of view, I could not disagree with him in the slightest, because from his side of things, why should he pay out when he doesn't have to? Why should he spend that budget when he doesn't have to? And you can't disagree with that. No business would turn that down. So from his point of view, he was absolutely right. So and a lot of bloggers complain about this a lot. They always, oh, people don't want to pay. They don't want to pay the money. They're not paying me. They're always asking us to do work for free. Well, it's your damn fault. If you don't want brands to ask you to work for free, stop working for free. Put it this way, I charge for everything I do. I've got professional rates, and they're not cheap. I'm probably, there are a lot of people who charge a lot more than me, a lot of people who charge less, but I'm not cheap. I get a lot of work. Before 2020, I was earning 3 times as much as a blog than I was a professional nurse. So the budgets are there. People are willing to pay if you basically demand it. And I've always said as well, there's room within that for waiving fees in certain circumstances. But there's a big difference between waiving a fee and working for free. But if you don't start from scratch, if you don't start that from the beginning and set that expectation that you have professional rates, no one's going to pay you. You're not going to earn a damn thing. And it's all your fault. And that's one of the biggest bugbears I have with the industry at the moment.
When you tell people this, is it are you a popular person?
No, I pretty much offend everyone, and people don't like that because I really care. Because it's telling the truth. I don't care if I offend you, if I'm telling you to stop working for free. If you're there working for free and ruining it for everyone, you're in it. And I've got no qualms about saying. So it does tend to offend a few people.
The blogging industry is obviously really still quite young. It's only been 10 to 15 years, but hopefully people will pick up what you're saying. Hopefully other people are saying the exact same thing. Don't work for free, and then things will hopefully change for the better. What has traveling taught you then to be the way you are today? Because I know you mentioned a little bit, it's changed you, and it's a great way. But what would you say one thing that has taught you?
The one thing that sort of travel's always taught me is that there's nothing that the world can throw at me that I can't handle. Because I think, I've always had the sort of perception as well, especially from being a nurse for such a long time. I worked in emergency nursing primarily, and I got like other quals and everything on top of that. But I saw basically a lot of people die. There's no nice way of saying that. I saw people who were at the end of the life, and I saw people who were right at the start of the life who had their lives cut short. And the one sort of constant throughout that was a lot of people always looked back and said, I wish I'd done more, or I wish I'd had a chance to do that. And I always promised myself that that would never be me. So I've always had that mindset about travel, about taking every opportunity, about basically going into life full force, full throttle. And with that, I think obviously as you travel, and if you've been traveling as long as I have, you have a lot of things go wrong. There's times when everything doesn't go to plan, things go wrong, you find yourself in a few shaky spots. And over 20 years, I've got a lot of travel stories like that. But one thing that it's always taught me is it doesn't matter what it is, no matter what life throws at you, I've been able to handle it. So it doesn't matter what life throws at me in the future, I know that I'll be able to handle that as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things travel's taught me, is that it's that sort of self-confidence in yourself, that sort of attitude of I can take anything on. And I think that's fed through to everything as well, including running the business. I think that attitude is sort of one of the things that's sort of made me push it and build it into a success as well. So I think that's probably the big thing that travel's taught me over the years.
If you watch any of my shows, travel has changed my perception in life, and emotionally, I'm more connected to people, and no matter what you do when it comes to travel, you've got to find your own inner peace. Really, that's what I always say. So it's making a pathway for yourself, and if it leads to different things in life, then that's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic, and that's what it's all about for me. Is there anything that you've come across whilst you travel that's been, dangerous at times?
I mean, I have a sort of slightly different perception of danger to most people, because nothing scares me in that respect. Because the way I approach it is because traveling the world is not dangerous. Things can happen anywhere, anytime to anyone, even at home. I think that for me, with my experience and my background and everything else, I view risk as a problem to be solved. So it's sort of um, the training that I've had in different areas, the specific things that I do to reduce risk. All of that comes into managing that risk and reducing the risk as much as humanly possible. The point that um, the risk is so negligible that it's barely worth worrying about. And if something does happen, then I know generally I can either try and avoid it, I can try and de-escalate it, or if it really hits the fan, I've generally got the skills to get out of it. And I mean, I've had bad things happen to me. Some tried to mug me in Colombia. I've been in a fight in Argentina, which we won't really get into. But they don't like it when you call the Falkland Islands the Falklands over there. They really don't like that. I've been lost in the jungle. I've been stranded in the desert. I was in Egypt during the Egyptian Revolution in 2011.
Oh yeah.
And I remember getting a phone call off my mum in a blind panic. Are you safe? Are you safe? And I'm like, I'm sat here having a cup of coffee, fine. So I've had all these things happen to me. And actually, I remember once in Cairo, a cat actually saved my life.
Okay.
At Cairo train station. Because I was sat there at a cafe just looking for a train and kept a pack by my side. And there was, unbeknownst to me, a snake, a snake had basically gotten under my pack. So when I moved it, basically it was going to get me. But I didn't know it was there at the time. And there was a cat and I love animals, I love cats. And it was always around me. It was either on the wall just above me, it was on the chair next to me, it was on the table next to me staring at me. And I was trying to coax it a little bit of food and give it some food. It wouldn't come near me. It wouldn't come up to me because I love animals. I want to give it a stroke. But it wouldn't. But it was always around me. And when I moved my pack, and this snake was there. I've never seen a bunch of Egyptians move fast in my entire life. Everyone just scrambled off the chairs and off the tables. Tables were getting knocked over. And this cat basically jumped down and was sort of keeping this snake at bay. And I still to this day because it's really rare in Egypt to find a snake in a little suburban area like that. It's really, really rare. But if it hadn't have been for that cat, that snake would have probably bitten me. Long story short, the snake died and the cat was fine. But I still to this think that cat saved my life. And once it had done that, it accepted a little bit of chicken off me on a plate and then disappeared. And there's always incidents that happen. There's always little things that happen when you're traveling. But I think a lot of most of them have become some of my best travel stories as well. So I wouldn't really consider them dangerous things that's happened to me. But
your story there, I always try and tell people when people always say to me, "Oh, this place is dangerous," "Oh, that place is dangerous." You said at the beginning of that, when you said,
Facing in a dangerous country.
well, exactly, you can get mugged in your own home. Anything can happen, you see. So, I think that's, you got to give a place, a destination, respect in that sense. Well, how do you know unless you've been? That's why I always say.
But you'd say the exact same thing about being at home. And like I said, there's such thing as a dangerous destination. Obviously, not including active conflict zones or disaster areas or things like that, obviously. That goes without saying. But in general terms, there's no such thing as a dangerous country. I think a lot of people forget that the places travelers go to, South America, Southeast Asia, India, have much lower crime rates than the places travelers come from, like the US or the UK. And I think a lot of people forget that sometimes. I always say to people, look, if they come to me, oh, such and such a dangerous country, I don't want to go there. So you live in London, you live in New York, you've got some of the highest crime rates in the world. What are you talking about?
I always sort of ask people, away from travel, what sort of interest do you have? I've noticed you're quite a big guy. I mean, I assume you go to the gym, work out.
Yeah, not in about 6 months. The gyms have all been shut down, which has been probably the hardest thing. But yeah, I mean, I love exercise. I do love working out. I've trained in martial arts since I was a kid. I love martial arts as well. And I'm a huge geek as well. I love geek culture. I was in with Marvel Comics and DC Comics when I was a kid, but it was actually cool to like Marvel DC.
Yep.
A big history as well, especially ancient history. So those are the things that tend to be interesting outside of travel. But I think it always feeds in travel as well. A big part of my travels, like for example, when I was a kid, I started with Goju karate when I was about 6 years old. Then a bit later, I moved on to judo and jiu-jitsu as well, which are obviously all Japanese. So the Japanese culture has always been a big part of my life since I was a kid. But as I travelled, I went to like Thailand and I studied a little bit of Muay Thai. I went to Brazil, studied a bit of capoeira and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I've always had like, not to any great extent, certainly not to the extent that I've studied the Japanese arts, but just that's sort of fed into my travels as well. I've travelled specifically to places to train in certain arts in different ways. Another thing with the history as well, a lot of like some of my favourite countries are places like Egypt and Ethiopia and Israel and places like that where they've got a really deep ancient history, and I could basically study all of that as I was traveling. The same thing with geek culture as well, and going back to, like I said before, my favourite press trip was in Huntsville, Alabama, and that is one of the best cities in the world for geeks. It's such an amazing place. It's full of you can go and get lunch and play 80s arcade games. I think it's an entire day just on the Ninja Turtles arcade game. When I was there, so all of my interests outside of travel tend to feed into travel a little bit as well.
Are you in a relationship, or are you still single?
I'm actually married. Yeah, I got married a few years ago. It's actually not something that most people know. It's no secret, but it's not something that I put out on social media or on my blog. Because obviously my wife likes to stay private, and I like to keep sort of a big line between my work life and my private life. Also, it's not something I talk about a lot on my blog or social media. But yeah, I'm married to an amazing woman. She's a teacher, a lecturer, way smarter than I am. The stuff she teaches goes way over my head. So
sometimes with all the traveling and stuff, it's difficult to meet people, and because you never still, that's the thing, you see. And then trying to convince, your partner, I travel all year round. They're going to be like, well, when will I see you, sort of stuff. Just a quick fire round just to finish off. Favorite place up to now?
I think my favorite country is Singapore. Just because it's an amazing country anyway, but there's so many personal memories I have from there. We've practically lived there. At one point, it's where I proposed to my wife. So that's my favorite country.
If you had to pick one type of food to live on for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Can I say Southeast Asia? Because it encompasses everything.
Yeah.
Probably Thai, Malay.
Thai food. Oh, brilliant. That's a good choice, by the way. That's it, Mike. Hopefully you've enjoyed chatting to us, or chatting to me, I should say. Just before I...
Always love chatting.
Just before I let you go, any new developments you've got coming up that people can look forward to? And where can people find you as well?
Well, people can find me at bemusedbackpacker.com. I'm on Twitter at Bemused Backpack. I'm obviously on Facebook as well. I'm probably the only travel blogger in the world who isn't on Instagram. But I am on YouTube and TikTok as well. So come and find me on all of those. What I'm working on at the moment is obviously because of what's going on in the world, travel is much limited at the moment. So I'm working on UK and Ireland staycations and UK days out. So there's going to be a lot more content from the UK coming out over the next few months.
Amazing. Well, Mike, thank you for coming on, and we don't live too far from each other, so hopefully I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, hopefully, and thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
There you go, guys. That was a very interesting talk I had with Mike, especially about his blogging. Now, it's really interesting to hear that you shouldn't work for free, and it actually helps the industry in the long term, because it will pave the way for new bloggers coming through and anyone else that wants to get into the world of travel. People should take from that as a lesson and think to themselves, actually, I'm worth more than a freebie, really. So, and remember, you can find Michael on any social media with the handle Bemused Backpacker. You can also head to his website, bemusedbackpacker.com. That's it for another edition of Take a Wander with Shebs. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show. Until next time, bye for now.